I thought I'd start today by showing a chart for fentanyl use in my home state of Queensland. From what you can see, the data is broken into two parts. First, the fentanyl usage in the capital Brisbane, shown here, and second, fentanyl usage in the regional areas, shown over here. And the data is presented in terms of the milligrams of fentanyl consumed per 1,000 people per day on this side, or on this side, the number of doses taken per 1,000 people per day. And the question you might be thinking is, where does the government get the information on the fentanyl usage for the population of Queensland? Well, you can't just ask people because they're probably not going to be truthful. And you could estimate from things like prosecutions or police data, but that's problematic because it's not going to cover the entire picture. What the government needs is a way of anonymously collecting surveillance data from the entire or at least a significant portion of the population. And if you were to ask these people, they'd say, yep, no problem, the microchips installed by Bill Gates will send that data across the 5G network via the Illuminati to the lizard people. But in reality, there's a simpler explanation. Enter the wastewater system. Whenever you flush a toilet that's plumbed into the public sewers, eventually it's going to arrive at a wastewater treatment plant like the one shown here. These treatment plants collect from a well-defined catchment area, such as from a city and its surrounding suburbs. Now, the government has a pretty good idea of the overall demographic of that city. Things like the age of the population, the gender breakdown, the socioeconomic factors, and the like from things like tax data, census data, mortgage data, welfare data, all of these types of things. And so, when drug metabolites in your waste arrive at the treatment plant, they're going to merge with the rest of the population's waste, where you can sample for that city or local area. So, how reliable is this data? Well, it depends on the quality of the urban planning, the infrastructure, and with what regularity the testing is being done. So, for example, if there's a single water treatment plant treating one city, you can be relatively confident that the sampling is going to be specific to that area. If, however, the water treatment plant is allocated to 3 separate towns, it's quite difficult to know where within those 3 towns potential drug activity could be occurring. Similarly, it comes down to infrastructure and what percentage of the dwellings are actually linked into the sewer system, which for Western countries is going to be the overwhelming majority. And lastly, it comes down to regularity. So the government may be testing twice a year, 4 times a year, 12 times a year. The more testing that's being done, the better the overview the data is going to give. So to use my own country, Australia, as an example, in 2023, there's 58 water treatment plants, and that provides coverage of 57% of the entire population of Australia, or 14.6 million people. The data that the government's looking for covers alcohol usage, cannabis, cocaine, fentanyl, heroin, ketamine, MDA, MDMA, methamphetamine, nicotine, and oxycodone. These are the main drugs, legal and illegal, that it considers to be a health problem. Here's another example looking at cocaine usage. What we can see is that there's sort of this upward and then downward trend, with COVID being in the middle when everyone was depressed, stuck at home. You can also see that there's more cocaine usage in the capital cities than there is in the regional areas. And just to show that it's not just Australia being a nanny state, here we have the daily averages of cocaine usage used across the European Union, shown here, with this large clustering over Amsterdam and the Netherlands. So what's the intention of doing this? Well, primarily it's to understand drug use trends. What's going up, what's going down, and where that is occurring. It's also sometimes used to identify novel pharmacological compounds. So if there's a brand new illicit drug spreading through the country, you can get information early about where it is starting from and where it's spreading to. And finally, you can use this information to understand and potentially break down illicit supply chain networks. One important thing to say is that this information is not used to prosecute individuals. It's for forensic intelligence only. That's all we have for today. Thanks for listening. Please consider subscribing.